a new tide turning, we rise. Now we are together, we're with you forever. We've got a new view, not like we used to. Now you're at the center, I'm talking about the new life. Yeah, oh, I believe you opened up my eyes. I'm talking about the new life. Yeah.
Hey, Michael DeLeon on the road to recovery in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the suburbs of Eastern Pennsylvania, and got a chance to sit down with Spencer Teo. Red Letter Hymnal, what an amazing, incredible band from the Pittsburgh area, Christian music, and Spencer himself, what an amazing, gifted artist, musician, and what an incredible story. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share his story and Red Letter Hymnal music with you on the road to recovery from Eastern PA with Spencer Teo.
What's going on, guys? My name is Spencer Teo, and I am from the band Red Letter Hymnal, originally from Tampa, Florida, based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania now. And this is my story. For me, my battle with drugs started pretty early on. My parents got divorced when I was pretty young, so I grew up in a household that was primarily a single parent. My mom ended up getting remarried later on in life, but for the most part, it was just my mom, my older brother, and me. And growing up, I just wanted to be my older brother. And so at a very young age, we were at a party, and we had been drinking, smoking weed, doing all that kind of stuff. And then I remember being introduced to painkillers. And I remember doing my first painkiller and thinking that was it, that was the one. That led me into being introduced to cocaine, which led to cocaine addiction. All throughout my high school careers, I don't remember a day where I was, running around sober. After graduation, somehow I graduated high school. I was given an ultimatum at a young age by my mom, my stepdad. It's either you can go seek help, you can go seek recovery, or you can't live here. I got into a car accident, and it totaled the car I was living in. And I didn't know what to do, so I remember calling my mom and just bawling my eyes out at the reality of my current situation. And she told me to come back home, and it was under one condition, that if I came back home, we would be getting me a flight to go to San Francisco, California, where my biological father had moved to. And I got sent out there, and we lived in a tough neighborhood in San Francisco. My brother actually got sent out to San Francisco for the exact same thing about 7 months before I did. So I remember getting there with my older brother and asking him, like, hey man, can you find anything? I remember we ended up being able to track down some cocaine, and we had done all we could afford. And that night, just something was happening in my mind. I started hearing voices in my head that I couldn't control. The reality of me losing my life was very tangible. And it was a conversation that was like, you can continue this or you can end this, but it's your choice. What's gonna happen? I remember being all alone when I was 16, listening to MCR because no one else seemed to get me. Man, I'm not okay, I promise. Man, that's that joint I rock with. That necktie, that skinny jeans, that shopping at Hot Topic. I believe that teenage mindset that none of us would ever die. We're invincible. But some funerals in my senior year showed me that was a lie. I buried some of my closest friends to overdose and suicide. Only the good die young, huh? But that's what they would post online, just so they could justify the way that they all lived their lives. Because it's okay to kill yourself as long as it gets glamorized. I know this because I lived that life. And I know this because I try to take my life. It's only by the grace of God I still happen to be alive. So I remember trying to find a job out in California, and my brother got me a job at a deli he was working at, and this old lady came in, and it was one of those old ladies that like loved Jesus way too much, you feel me? Like, And thank God for that, because she came in and she realized I was new to this deli, and she asked me where I was from and how long I'd been living in San Francisco. And she asked me if I had a church yet. Not if I went to church or anything like that, just if I had a church yet. And I was like, that's trying to be polite. I'm like, no, I don't. She handed me a card for the church she was going to. She goes, we have a young pastor. I think you'd like him. Come check it out. I was like, okay, lady, thank you, whatever. Pocketed the card. And for some reason, I held on to the card. To this day, outside of the power of the Holy Spirit, I don't know why I did. And I remember doing laundry and finding the card. And that next week, I decided to go. And I showed up. It was a small church that was in a house that got renovated into a church. There was like 23 people, 25 people, including the pastor and his wife. And I showed up with a buddy of mine, and the praise band was the pastor who played bass, his wife who sang and played piano, and a drummer. And I remember this pastor's wife had a really, really good voice. And after the service, the lady who invited me was there in the front row. She saw me, was super excited I was there, introduced me to the pastor, and started talking. He found out that I love music. I was playing music. And he's like, hey man, we don't have a guitar player. We need one of those. And I was like, hey man, well, I can do that. Still on the fence with all this stuff, still battling this struggle of addiction. And I remember one time we were at praise practice, and I used to take, in the Bay Area, they have a subway system called BART. I used to take that back to my house I was living at, and this time the pastor had offered to drive me home. So I was like, sure, man. And he pulled into the neighborhood I was living in to drop me off, and it was a super rough part of town. And as he was circling around trying to find where I lived, he's like, hey man, you just want to like crash at my place? Like you can, I can bring you back whenever, but you can crash there. And I was like, sure, man, definitely. And if I don't have to sleep in the hood, I would definitely crash there. So I ended up spending a night. We had dinner with his family, and then one night turned into 2 nights, turned into 3 nights. And all along, this guy was just completely putting up with the brokenness that I was, man. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a man of God navigating life. It got to the point where I'd been crashing at his house for like 2 weeks, and he's like, hey man, you just want to move in downstairs? Like we can go grab your stuff, get it in here. And I was like, definitely, man. So I would love to do that. Picked up my stuff, moved in, and this was a church plant that him and his wife had been doing for about like a month before I showed up. So he's like, dude, you can live here for free, but just help me and my wife do this stuff. And I was totally on board, and it was through that that I started to see how life was navigated as a follower of Jesus. And he communicated the gospel to me one night, super clear, broke it down for me, and broke down the reality of who I was, the reality of where I was at, the reality of who God is and what he did for me. And it was in that moment I was like, listen, if what I've seen in the past month and a half that I've been living with you, if that's the fruit of this thing, dude, I'm in. And so I gave my life to Christ, man, in that moment, and I took it seriously. And I stumbled and I fell, and I got to see him have grace with me, and the grace him and his wife had with me, the healthy tension that he applied, the spirit of remembrance of what I was saved not only from, but what I was saved to on a constant basis, changed the trajectory of my life. And since then, I'd lived with them for about almost a year. I moved back to Florida, and I got involved in a church trying to do the same thing for kids in high school that this man had done for me. And that led me to Pittsburgh, working for a ministry, going around sharing my story, preaching the gospel. And when I was in Pittsburgh, I got tied up with the guys from Red Letter Hymnal and joined the band. And ever since then, we've been touring the country doing the same thing. And every dude in my band has a story just as gnarly as mine. And it's just a testament to what I believe God's called us to in this season of our life, to go out and proclaim the faithfulness that we have, the reality of faith, the faithfulness that is tangible in our lives that we've seen on a daily basis. We're blessed now to travel the country with our best friends, to perform on stages we don't deserve to be on, for people we don't deserve to perform for. And all of it's a testament, man, like to what the gospel entering my life actually do.
Words, I hope they're loud enough to hear. Cause I'm doing what I can to prove that they're sincere, man. I'm trying to make right all those things that I've done wrong, but I'm feeling too unworthy to be looked at as your son, and I'm a wreck, I'm a mess. Look at all these things I've done. Don't put me to the test, cause it's easier to run. And I checked, and I guess that running's in my blood, cause how to be a man can't be taught by a single mom. But it was you who came down and adopted me by grace. So when I cling to my mistakes, you remind me that I'm saved. And that debt that I had earned for you, you gave your life to pay. To show that, oh, my dad had beat it, my father beat the grave. Now I'm alive, and I try just to hold my head up high. And I'm doing what I can to not believe that lie that I'm worth this, cause I'm worth it. And you wiped my whole slate clean, and them holes in your hands, you kept as a receipt.
Yeah. And so I didn't ask you, why'd you call it Red Letter Hymnal?
So Red Letter Hymnal is it's our vision statement. It's kind of a roundabout way. There used to be these red letter Bibles, which every word Jesus spoke was highlighted in red. And a hymnal is just a collection of songs. So it's a reminder to us that we want a collection of songs based on Jesus, the Word of God, and pointing back to Him and making sure everything that we're doing is pointing back to Him. That's our vision, with whatever music God uses.
And so let me ask you again, where do you see you, the band, your music going in the future?
On the road.
Yeah,
on the road.
Taking it to the road.
Yeah, we've been impacted by the material God's given us, the opportunity God's given us with this band. We've already seen fruit for the few years that we've been doing it, and we believe there's a real call in our lives to take that out, and it's beyond music. We would love for people to enjoy the music and allow that to create an experience and a moment for somebody in life, but to do stuff like this, man, to do stuff like what's happening here at Creation is to connect with people, to be able to talk and not have people just hear our stories, but sit down with them and also hear theirs, man. Like we learn so much from having those conversations.
New record right here.
Coastal Kids, it's out now. iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff.
Hey, check a 1, 2.